Go live. All right, in theory, the show is live. You guys will have to tell me whether it is or not. Oh, it's not 5:01? Oops. Oh, it's still outsourced much. Yeah, I don't know how to do anything. This is really, really sad. All right, Alan says it's time for roll call. We have Alan and Steve and Jason and Frank and Mike and Jill and John and Rose and Sandy and Michael and anybody in the sidebar. I think that takes care of everybody. All right. Yes. Oh, Kevin. Skipped right over Kevin. How did I skip over Kevin? It's hard to miss you. Well, you're so skinny now, I can look right around you. All right. This is going to be a very odd show. There are going to be two pieces. There's going to be my intro and one article and then Bart. But the one article's very long. So I'll be stopping and dropping in screenshots as often as I can. So anyway, I take my sip of water and we're going to get started. All right, here we go. I guess I don't have to push any mute buttons or anything. I'm good to go. One chapter mark. Yeah, actually, no, two. We'll have two. Maybe a couple. I'll put in chapter marks for the Chit Chat Across the Pond, so there'll be a couple. Here we go. Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com, a technology geek podcast with an ever so slight Apple bias. Today is Sunday, May 29th, 2022, and this is show number 890. Well, June 6th is the WWDC keynote, and as always, Steve and I will be in the live Podfeet chat room to exclaim with delight and or disappointment at what Apple announces. If you'd like to join us and all of the other NosillaCastaways who join in the fun, head over to podfeet.com/chat at 10 a.m. Pacific time on Monday, June 6th. Now, I put a link in the show notes using Bart's awesome web app. He calls it This Time. It's spelled this-ti.me. Get it? This time? Very cute. Anyway, the tool allows you to generate a link you can use to see what time it will be wherever you are on June 6th. So if you click the link in the show notes, you will know what time to be there. Now, as a reminder, Steve and I will not be talking over the keynote. We will be busily typing away like everyone else, so you won't miss a thing. Now, there's something I'm not excited about. It's that I did something really bad to my right knee on Monday. I was about 1.5 miles in when something popped and my knee started yelling, no, 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 no. I limped about 1.5 miles back. I went to the doctors and they don't think anything's torn, so that's good. I've been icing and compressing and elevating and Advilling like crazy, and I think it's somewhat better, but I still can't walk even a block without pain. Now, I have a couple of observations about this. First of all, the Apple Watch lasts a very long time if you don't exercise. I went to bed with 51% left the other day. I normally work out at least 1.5 hours a day, and I go to bed with maybe 20% if I'm lucky on the Series 7. Secondly, activity is very concerned about me. It's been sending me notifications, and then today it made me go look at health because all of my numbers were way down. At noon today, while I was talking to Bart, I noticed I'd burned a grand total of 141 calories by noon. I almost always overachieve my goal of 680 for the day, so 141 by noon, that's not good. Now, the other thing I noticed is there's a lot of time left in the day when you don't work out for 1.5 hours. Today I sat and I watched a TV show in the middle of the day. It's crazy. Anyway, it's not a good it's not a good situation, but I will certainly heal. People have asked what happened, and I said I think I have a bad case of old. Okay, save. Save there. All right, good. Make an edit here. Alrighty. And I want to put this over here now. This is my new method. And where's the other one? There it is. Actually, this is the one that goes over there. This can go over here. No, this goes over here too, doesn't it? What is it I do now? I think it's like that. All right. Chapter mark. Here we go. All right. Did I really? I can't believe it. I assigned a second macro to that same keystroke, so now I have to flip through a little palette. All right. On Friday, I had the great fun of being on the Daily Tech News Show with Tom and Sarah and Roger. We talked about how Microsoft revealed it's refocusing away from development of its current iteration of a game streaming device for TVs with a new approach. And we talked about what we think about Telegram setting up a paid version of its current service, amongst other things. We also talked about a study I did this week on choosing a VPN. Now, you're going to get the long-playing version of that study on VPNs in this very episode of the NosillaCast. Now, if you'd like to catch this episode of the Daily Tech News Show, look for DTNS number 4285 in your podcatcher of choice, or follow the link in the show notes. All right, and another chapter mark. Let's see. Copy link. And as that comes in, did that work? And I saved, and I did a chapter mark. Thank you, Kevin. I really want to go look at that Saturday Night Live bit, but I can't. Keep working. This week's episode of Chit Chat Across the Pond is a light version, but it is with Bart Busschots. In this episode, he talks to us about how he thinks about security. Now, rather than try to tell us with exacting precision what to do about a current thing, instead, this is where he talks about how to be proactive, how to convince others to accept changes in the name of security, and how to increase your security by reducing your attack surface. It sounds like a grim and boring subject, but of course, with Bart as our steward for the subject, it's filled with anecdotes and examples from real life, so it's really, really interesting and actually kind of fun. In addition to the podcast recording, Bart gave us a full blog post on the subject as well, so you have reference material to go back to and talk to your friends and family and coworkers about security. All right. Okay, here we go. Now it's really time for... What the heck was that? That was the wrong sound. Huh. Oh, maybe that's why. There we go. I got a bell. It's not supposed to do a bell when I press that button. Here we go. All right. Okay, here we go. Oh, no, we're not ready yet. We got to go bring that up. Here we go. There we go. All right. Everybody get ready. Last October, Alert NosillaCastway John Schaffer let me know that the VPN I'd been recommending for many years, Encrypt.me, had been sold to Ziff Davis. He wanted to know what this meant for the product. I reached out to the folks at Ziff Davis, and I had a nice conversation with them about their plans to incorporate Encrypt.me's features into one of the many other VPNs they had purchased. Now, in my article about the conversation, my bottom line was that I was cautiously optimistic and that you could keep using Encrypt.me for the foreseeable future. I also said that since it was pretty much end-of-life, I'd be looking around for alternatives. Dan Morin put it really well when he said about end-of-life to apps during a recent episode of Clockwise. He said, "I like to quit software applications before they quit me." I agree with that wholeheartedly. I also heard from a few NosillaCastaways that they tried to get support for Encrypt.me and they got nowhere. It's clearly time to find a new VPN after all. Now, before I describe my hunt for a new VPN, let's make sure we're on the same page about what problems a VPN solves. This may be a refresher for every single one of you, but I'd hate to leave anyone wondering about this. When you're at home behind your password-protected Wi-Fi or wired Ethernet, you're on a private network. But when you go to a coffee shop or hotel, you're either on a public network or at the very best, a shared network with everyone else in that hotel or coffee shop. VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. A VPN allows you, as the user, to send and receive data across public or shared networks as though you were directly connected to a private network. Now, when on a shared network, man-in-the-middle attacks can easily occur where bad actors spoof real websites in hope of getting you to give up your login credentials to your bank or even worse. With a properly configured VPN, you won't be susceptible to those attacks. Now, another main use of a VPN is to tunnel into your employer's network. With a VPN from your house to your employer, you can function exactly as though you are at the office with access to internal servers and services. Now, many security-minded Nosilla castaways also choose to always run a VPN, even if they're at home just surfing the net. This isn't as much about security as it is about privacy. Our internet service providers, ISPs, see all of the destinations of our network activity. But with a VPN running, they will only see that you tunneled out to your VPN provider's server, but after that, they cannot see where you went. There are also those who use a VPN to obfuscate their IP address. It could be for nefarious purposes, but it could also be to protect one's identity, say if you're under a political regime that is problematic. It can also be used to view content that is restricted in your geographical location. Now, personally, I haven't ever done that to bypass paying for something. I'm looking at you, Star Trek in Canada on Netflix. But I did once use it to tunnel into Britain because the idiots running the Olympics in the US did not air the US women's gymnastics competition. Come on, people. Anyway, that is the one time I moved my location for that reason. Hopefully, now we've got a foundation that helps you get your brain around why you might want to use a VPN. It was time to start evaluating VPN offerings that were in active development. This is much harder than you would think. You pretty much have two choices. Buy one of the ones advertised by your favorite tech podcasters, or choose one from the many top 10 best VPN provider lists. The first option isn't a terrible way to go because if you hear about a VPN from a tech podcaster, I think it's reasonable to assume they've used it themselves and done some sort of evaluation. But do you really know anything about those VPN providers? Do you know that the podcaster evaluated them thoroughly from a security perspective, or are they just the ones that offered advertising money? The second option is possibly even worse. Unfortunately, many, if not all of these top 10 lists are either paid for by the VPN vendors themselves or they're affiliate links. Now, I love me a good affiliate link, but I am pretty good at making sure you know when there's something in it for me. These top 10 lists often do not disclose the fact that they're getting paid for what you choose. You really have no way of knowing whether these lists are of good VPNs or only the ones that were willing to pay the site owner to be on the list. I started looking at a few of the podcaster recommended VPNs, and in general, they were quite a bit more expensive than what I've been paying for Encrypt.me. It's pretty obvious that I would need to start paying more, and I was willing to do that, but I still wanted to find a way to choose a VPN that truly provided security and privacy. Gonna take a quick break, and this is what I'm about to talk about, is this link here. And Steve always gives you a picture. I don't think I can add, I can't drag and drop from this though. I could do this. I could take screenshots like this. This is what Steve would give you. There. Isn't that exciting? Consumer Reports. All right. I was paralyzed about how to proceed. Then a couple of months ago, listener Lynn attended a Consumer Reports session about VPNs. Turns out Consumer Reports conducted an exhaustive study on current VPN providers, and they published an open white paper on their findings. You can actually view it at digital-lab.blah, blah, blah. It's a long URL, and of course there's a link in the show notes to this long article. It's a 48-page study, and so I mean it when I say it's an exhaustive study. They started by analyzing 200 VPN providers. They then culled that list down to 51. Then, through their evaluation, they narrowed it down to 16, onto which they did a deep dive. And I mean a really, really deep dive. The white paper takes you through, in detail, the security criteria they used to evaluate each of them and how they were quantifiably measured. They evaluated the 16 VPNs on 6 security criteria: build quality, best practices authentication. I stumbled there. I don't want to. Build quality, best practices authentication, encryption, known exploit resistance, security oversight, security over time, and vulnerability disclosure program. They also reviewed them against 6 data privacy criteria: access and control, data use and sharing, data retention and deletion, overreach, collecting too much data, governance, so privacy policies in terms of service, and then governance, privacy policies in terms of service update notifications. As if that wasn't extensive enough, they also have a list of other issues they looked into on each one of those 16: local logging, dark patterns, human rights and corporate social responsibility, logging, inaccurate presentation of products and technology, ownership, transparency reports, complaints, VPN-owned VPN review sites, response to breaches, and VPN analyzer issues. Or what is it? It's VPN analyzer issues. Not quite sure what that last one is. Anyway, this is a fantastic, fascinating report filled with bar graphs showing how each of the 16 VPNs fared on each of these criteria. But there's still a lot of detail I'll admit I didn't read. It seemed like a terrific study, but to be sure about that, I posted about it in our Security Bits Slack channel, podfeet.com/Slack, and I asked Bart if he'd take a look. His initial response was, "First impressions are excellent. These people are on my wavelength, excluding VPNs for hyperbolic ad copy, promising, quote, 100% security, or, quote, military-grade encryption." That's perfect that they excluded them for that. Military-grade encryption is a particular red flag. It sounds good, but the military is not about cybersecurity. So it's like saying cheese-grade acceleration. It's nonsense. I think we should try to find ways to work cheese-grade acceleration into some of our podcasts. Anyway, he came back a day or so later. My curiosity got the best of me. I looked through all the graphs and explanations to figure out why ExpressVPN did not make the top of the list. While they were actually number 1 in many categories, these are the ones they got dinged for. The graphs are color-coded with descending green all the way down to red. If all apps did well in a category, the range might be only green to pale green. But if someone did badly, you'll see all the way to red. So he talked about ExpressVPN was pale green, almost yellow on best build practices, bottom of pale green on authentication, orange on security overtime, middle orange on data control, super red on data retention and deletion, and takes 3 separate button pushes to cancel. So I like Bart's response for several reasons, primarily because he's a good litmus test on whether someone's blowing smoke about security. But he also took a look at a VPN provider that he liked and found out where they fell down. Since I wrote about this in our Slack, a few people told me how they chose their VPN providers, and they were encouraging me to look at those VPNs, but they chose their VPN providers on a way that wasn't based on this level of fact-checking for security and privacy. I'm not really interested in somebody saying, hey, I like this one. That's not what I'm looking for. Now, if you're content with your current VPN provider, you might want to cover your ears and say, la, 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 or you might want to take a look at this report like Bart did and see how they did and reevaluate your decision if necessary. Okay. Save. Wait, I don't have a chapter mark. I love it. Frank's also worried about the chicken. I know, it's really, I think I know how to make eggs. All right. Here we go. While all of this detail and nifty graphs were really interesting, I was really hoping Consumer Reports had a bottom line answer for us. I was not disappointed. The last paragraph of the 48 pages is entitled Recommendations for Users. Here's what they said. Of the 16 VPNs we analyzed, Mullvad, PIA, Ivpn, and Mozilla Vpn, which runs on Mullvad servers, in that order were among the highest ranked in both privacy and security. However, PIA never had a public third-party security audit. Additionally, in our opinion, only Ivpn, Mozilla Vpn, and Mullvad, along with one other VPN, TunnelBear, accurately represents their services and technology without any broad, sweeping, or potentially misleading statements. All right, now that Consumer Reports had done all of the heavy lifting to narrow down the playing field, my plan was to pay for and install the 4 finalists and evaluate them against my own criteria. PIA was ranked second of the 4, but with that caveat that they've never had a public third-party audit. Knowing that these companies had done well in such rigorous evaluation of their security and privacy practices, I knew I didn't have to worry my pretty little head about that part of the decision process. All four are open source, which is cool because it means security researchers can poke their curious little noses into the code to see how it works. Microwave a hot dog. I'd have to have a hot dog to do that. All right. Let's see, I'm going to screenshot this picture for you. All right. Trying to do Steve's job here. It's a lot of work. I had to remember to feed the dog today. I remembered at about 2. Oops. Oh, well. Whoop. To see how it works. When embarking on a project like this, I think it's important to lay down the criteria you want to judge the options against before you start testing. It's very easy to change the criteria to match the one you like instead of evaluating every option on its own merits. I like to use a process called a QFD. That stands for Quality Functional Deployment, which is a terrible name. Don't even know what that means, but I know what a QFD is. Now, I made a video back in 2015 that I've linked to in the show notes that demonstrates how you can use a QFD to make decisions. For the serious QFD experts amongst you, this is going to annoy the heck out of you, but I like my heavily simplified version of the concept. At its very basic level, you create a list of criteria first. You give each criterion a weighting value based on its importance to you. You are only allowed to assign a weighting value of 1, 3, or 9. You're not allowed to use 1, 2, 3. You can't use 1 to 10. It has to be 1, 3, 9. The purpose of this odd numbering system will become obvious in a moment. Once you have the criteria and their associated weighting values before looking at any of the options, you start to evaluate these different options. In this case, my 4 VPN apps. You then assign a 1, 3, or 9 to how well that option meets each criterion. When you're done evaluating an option against all of the criteria, you multiply how well an option has met a criterion against its weighting factor and then add them all up for that option. By using this 1, 3, 9 method for both the weighting and how well an option met the criteria, the final tallies for each option should spread farther apart than they would if you used linear values, making the one true answer more obvious to you. Now, describing the QFD process is much clumsier than if you just see it with the math, and trust me, it works really well. Be careful to not get overzealous when you do this and say everything is a 9 in importance, or you won't get any differentiation at all. Sometimes you must, like for example, if everything had the same value. I started ad-libbing. Sometimes. Drink. Sometimes you must, but try to avoid it if possible. Also remember that while I'm using this rigorous math to help my decision process, the values I'm assigning will be in many cases subjective. Sometimes a feature exists or doesn't exist, but often it's much squishier than this. The importance value is also subjective, but this decision tool can help reveal an answer you might not have expected. Since I don't have to worry about evaluating any of the 4 VPN offerings for security and privacy, I'm free to make up my own criteria. Here's what I chose. Now, remember, this isn't what you choose. This is what I chose. You need to make up your own criteria. So here's what I chose. Available on all platforms: macOS, iOS, iPadOS, Linux, Windows, and Android. Secondly, turns itself on when on an untrusted network. This is so I can set it and forget it. So if I walk into a coffee shop, it turns itself on, but it turns itself off when I come back home. The third one was easy to figure out how to trust networks. Encrypt.me had this feature, but it was baffling each time I had to find the setting. Family sharing was something I wanted. I was hoping to cover Steve and me at a minimum, but keep covering my kids if it was affordable. It was affordable with Encrypt.me. Separately, price, with or without family sharing, price does matter. Speed when connected to the VPN. Available on enough devices at a reasonable price. Some of these had plans for just 2 devices. Isn't that precious? Anyway, my next criteria was pretty. It's my list. I can ask for pretty if I want to. You don't have to put pretty on your list, but I put pretty on my list. My final thing was a measure of fiddliness. The last thing I want in a VPN is fiddly, or I will just turn it off and not use it. So it's only going to work for me if it's not fiddly. Now, again, one more time, you may have completely different criteria, but these are what's important to me. I set weighting values of 1, 3, or 9 for each of these criterion, and I got to work. Here's my testing process. I paid for 1 month's usage of each of the 4 VPNs, Mulvad, Ivpn, Mozilla Vpn, and PIA. I installed them on my Mac and on at least one iOS device. Probably the most important lesson I learned while doing this was that on iOS, only install one at a time. Well, sure, that sounds obvious now. You're going, duh, Allison. But I still had encrypt.me's profile on my iPhone, plus I added 2 or 3 more before I realized it was the root of the fiddliness I was starting to experience on some of these VPNs. So I had to back out and only have one running at a time. It does install these profiles, so you have to make sure you don't have any extra ones in there. All right, we'll get to my quantified analysis in the QFD at the end, but I'd like to first describe my experience with each one. Pretty. Okay. All right. Let's see. Let's take a picture of Mulvad for you. All right. You guys tell me whether I gave that a high rating for pretty. Okay. I started with the VPN called Mulvad. Mulvad doesn't require you to create an account. They simply give you a unique account number. They don't even get your email address. You can pay with a credit card, but you can also pay with cash. You can actually mail them an envelope of cash, or you can use cryptocurrency. In fact, if you pay with crypto, it's actually 10% cheaper than any of the other methods. I thought that was interesting. For some reason, Mulvad's credit card payment page would not work with Safari, but I've been having a lot of trouble with Safari lately, so I fell back to using Microsoft Edge. Their pricing is $5, I'm sorry, not $5, €550 per month, no matter how many licenses you want or however long you want them. They are very proud of this static pricing system that has been in place for many years without an increase. €550 is currently $5.37 US per month, which works out to $64 per person or $129 per year for our family of 2. I downloaded and installed Mulvad, and I was delighted by the icon for it. It's a mole wearing a hard hat with a light on it. Get it? Tunneling? I thought it was funny. Anyway, Mulvad also includes ad blocking, malware blocking, and more, all within the VPN app. This was the first app I tested, and I noticed that I could choose either WireGuard or OpenVPN to make my VPN connection. As I worked through the 4 different VPNs, I realized that with the exception of Mozilla VPN, they all offered both. Mozilla VPN offered just WireGuard. I didn't know why I'd care about it, so I asked Bart. He said, WireGuard is newer, more efficient, and better designed. It's the cream of the current crop. It's so good, Linus incorporated it straight into the Linux kernel. Well, luckily, all 4 of the contenders have an option for WireGuard, so if it's good enough for Linus Torvalds, the inventor of Linux, it's good enough for me. The one reason I can imagine you might want to use OpenVPN is that you can put it on many home routers and NASs, so maybe a client that supports OpenVPN would be an advantage. If so, eliminate Mozilla VPN from your list. Back to Mulvad, you explicitly tell it where you would like to connect. For example, I'm in California and I can choose Los Angeles. From there, I can choose from 20 or more different servers in Los Angeles. However, I'm not shown any information on whether any of those are a good choice. With some of the other offerings, it turned out servers in Las Vegas often had less latency than the ones in California. I'll give Mulvad high marks for lots of servers, but low marks for information about those servers. The interface is very bold and striking. Mulvad is a menu bar app like some of the others, and it has a bright red unlocked icon that turns bright green and locked when you're connected. If those bold colors bother you, you can make it muted in the menu bar and less recognizable in settings. That didn't come off right. It's not that it's less recognizable in settings. It's in settings it's less recognizable. If those bold colors... If those bold colors bother you, you can make it muted and less recognizable by going into Settings. Molvad has a dark map showing your location with a bright red banner and a bold green Secure My Connection button. Now, if you prefer a subtle, modern UI, you'll hate Molvad. If you long for the days when you could tell your application windows apart and your menu bar items apart, you'll bask in the glory that is Molvad's UI. I would have trouble calling it pretty, but you could call it bold, like I said. As the pod mom used to say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. As I mentioned earlier, one of my criteria was that my VPN should automatically protect my connection when I'm on an untrusted network, but not engage when I'm on a trusted network. I couldn't find any settings for that with Molvad, so I reached out to them. Eric from the Molvad team got back to me very quickly and explained, quote, "We do not have such a feature as we don't believe it's good practice for security. It's easy to spoof an SSID to trick your devices into being in safe mode." Well, I decided to run this by Bart because my initial thought was that, there's no way that a bad actor in a coffee shop would know the name of my home Wi-Fi SSID. So the chances of them being able to spoof it is significantly lower than the chances that I'll forget to turn on my VPN if it's not automatic. Bart's answer was really interesting. He said I was correct, that they would not be able to figure out my home SSID, so I was very proud of myself. But the answer could be very different for other people than me. He said that large companies and even small companies can have the same SSID for the entire company. I had no idea. He suggested someone could go into the lobby, say at Intel, see the SSID being offered, and then just trot over to a nearby coffee shop and set up that SSID to be spoofed. If you trust your work network and don't have it go into the VPN, then your VPN might not turn on when you're in a coffee shop. He also said that universities throughout the Western world have one single SSID. It's EduRoam. The idea is that if you're doing research at a university, you should be able to just hop on the network no matter what university you're visiting. I had no idea SSIDs were so broad. When I retired from a defense contractor, Wi-Fi was not a thing, and may not even be a thing yet for that kind of company. I don't know. I'm still going to keep this as one of my criteria because the danger probably doesn't apply to me and because the chances of me forgetting are so much higher. I encourage you to think about whether you want to use this kind of feature based on Bart's explanation. Molvad and many, if not all of the other three I tested, have a feature where you can enable local area network sharing. This is pretty nifty because it lets you have access to things like printers and other network devices. When I mentioned it to Bart, he pointed out that turning it on is essentially the same as saying you trust everyone on this network. I hadn't thought about that either. I asked him, what's the point of this feature then? He reminded me about the people I mentioned up front who choose a VPN for privacy so their ISP can't see where their traffic is going, and those same users might want to appear to be from a different IP address, thus changing their apparent location. In both of these cases, nope, I reworded and that wasn't right. He reminded me that some users choose a VPN for privacy so their ISP can't see where their traffic is going, and some users want to appear from a different IP address, thus changing their apparent location. In both of these cases, you might still want to maintain your local area network access because you're not on an open network, you're at home. But if you're going to use a VPN to protect yourself from ne'er-do-wells on open Wi-Fi networks when traveling, you'd be best to keep that LAN access switched off. All right. I wonder if should I bookmark each of these sections? I think I should. Just a bookmark that just says Molvad. Yeah, this could be valuable. All right, let me. Yeah. Okay, now I got to go back and find that one. But my titles also do have the links. Okay, but now I got to go back and find out where I started talking about Molvad. Proud of this static pricing system that is. Oh, I'm close. I started with the Yes, caught it. Okay, so let's see. Let's do here. I still can't believe I picked the same keystroke. People are going to love that. Ah, brilliant. Okay, Ivpn. Oh, I'm on Ivpn. I told you this was going to be lengthy. Let's get a screenshot for you to see what Ivpn looks like. Oh yeah, somebody's got to count chapter marks for me. Oh, that's going to be great. I may have to do the count myself. Okay. So I got Ivpn. Here we go. Sip of water. Yeah, this might be my longest post. It was 6,024 words, I think. Is that what I last said? Holy cannoli. Oh, no, wait. Here we go. No, 6239. That's bananas. All right, here we go. The next one up is Ivpn. Not only does Ivpn work... Oh, come on. The next one I tested was Ivpn. Not only does Ivpn work on Windows, Mac OS, Linux, iOS, and Android, they also have versions for compatible routers, along with Synology and QNAP network-attached storage devices using OpenVPN. They have two pricing plans. Standard is for 2 devices. Again, isn't that precious? And Pro is for 7 devices. Now, I guess I'm a pro because I travel with at least a Mac, an iPad, and an iPhone. If you pay annually, the 2-device plan is $60 per year, and the Pro plan is $100 per year. Now, Steve only travels with 2 because he hates the iPad, so for the 2 of us, it'd be $160 per year. That makes Ivpn the most expensive of the 4 offerings, at least for our little family of 2. Like Mulvad, Ivpn is an Electron app. Ivpn is beautiful. It's smooth, it's responsive, and the menus are very clear and very obvious to follow. Ivpn does allow you to trust networks and will automatically toggle on and off as appropriate. I have a guest network on my Eero router, so I was able to easily test switching between my trusted main network and the untrusted guest network. Sadly, Ivpn on the Mac got fiddly on me. I tried to toggle it on, and the toggle would flip on and immediately flip off. At the same time I was testing it on the Mac, I was testing it on my iPhone, and the phone worked without any trouble. I wrote to Ivpn, and Edward got back to me very quickly. His response was quite lengthy. Networks are different. If you cannot connect or experience connectivity issues while being connected, this may indicate a network issue. The issue may also occur if the network service provider, ISP, is shaping or throttling the VPN traffic on a certain protocol or port. One way to get past such restrictions might be to tune the connection. Fortunately, our app makes this tuning very easy, and he gave me a link to how to do that. Now, I'm going to interrupt here for a second. He's not noticing that I said the phone was fine, so I don't think my ISP is shaping it, and there's no connectivity issues with my network. But he kept going. OpenVPN and WireGuard both offer a selection of ports. It might be prudent to test all of these ports to determine the one which works best on your current network and allow the connection through. You might also consider trying a different server location or 2. Network routing can be weird, and using a server location that is far or farther away might bypass whatever is restricting the traffic. Well, while this was very helpful and very specific, it still doesn't explain why the iPhone was working and the Mac was not. He suggested that maybe the iOS app was running a different protocol or port that was allowing the connection. The second problem with this answer is that I don't want to have to know all of this. I don't want to know about protocols and ports. I am capable of understanding this, but I don't want to. I want to walk into Starbucks and I want my VPN to go on. I want to walk into my house or tether from my phone and have it go off. I was sad about Ivpn being fiddly because it really is beautiful, and it has the trusted networks option, and I love that it has a simple, fastest server option, so I don't even have to figure out whether Las Vegas is faster than Los Angeles. It did all that work for me. It's very expensive if you need more than 2 devices, and I verified that their terms do not allow multiple users to share a 10-device plan. This was a perfect example of that I was really glad I made my criteria up front, because I really probably would have picked Ivpn because it was so beautiful, but I had Fiddly on there, and I tell you what, Fiddly was a 9. So if it was Fiddly, it was not going to get chosen. Yeah, I don't want to know about ports and switching protocols. I don't know why he hates the iPad, but he does. Actually, he hates iOS in general, but the phone is a necessary evil, I guess. All right. Time for Mozilla. Loving my chapter marks, Grumpy. All right. Saved and chapter mark. Next up was Mozilla Vpn. Mozilla is a name that's near and dear to all of our hearts as the creators of Firefox, so I was glad to see Mozilla Vpn in the top 4 contender list. Mozilla's pricing is simple and in the mid-range of the ones I tested at $5 a month if paid yearly, which works out to $60 per year for a very reasonable 5 devices per person. For the 2 of us, we'd be looking at $120 per year. Mozilla VPN has probably the simplest interface. It's also a menu bar app, and it has a simple toggle to turn on the VPN. It shows you how many devices out of the 5 you've connected to the service, and you can even trash them right from the interface to free up some slots if you need to. To choose a server, you can search by country, and then you'll be shown a list of servers in that country. The tool doesn't provide any information on the latency of the server you've chosen, but in my speed tests of the Los Angeles server, Nope. The tool does. By Gardner. Nice. The tool doesn't provide you any information on the latency of the server you've chosen, but in my speed test of the Los Angeles server it provided me was right in the pack with my other VPN providers. Mozilla VPN is a built-in speed test tool. I didn't find that in any of the other VPN tools I studied. I wish they all had this feature. There are very few options with Mozilla VPN, and I couldn't find a way to trust networks. I reached out to Mozilla, and like the others, I got a very quick response to my query about the feature. Ed explained that they don't have that feature, but suggested that I share that request with the development team. Now that's a great answer for an open source project. He thanked me and explained how to add this to their tracking system for requests. While that was swell, I don't really want to wait around for a feature request. I needed a solution right away. There's one more interesting thing about Mozilla VPN. As I said from the Consumer Reports article, it runs on Mullvad servers. That's not a ding on it, just an interesting thing to note. If you're not happy with Mullvad's server selection for your area, then Mozilla VPN probably would not provide you with better service. Okay. Next one. And let's pop a button. So far, my voice is holding out, which is a miracle. I've been losing my voice this time every night for the past 2 weeks. All right. Actually, I don't like that link. I get rid of the word download. I should change that in the article too. I found a missing period for the end of a sentence. All right. The final contestant in the top 4 is PIA, or Private Internet Access. This offering, like all of the other VPN providers, works on all of the major operating systems, but they had one more I hadn't thought of that might meet your needs. PIA has a Chrome OS client. PIA offers different commitment lengths that can help decrease the cost. They have options for month-to-month, 6 months, 2 years, and 3 years, which is with correspondingly decreasing pricing. Month-to-month is around $12 a month, going all the way down to barely over $2 a month for a 3-year commitment. I do need to give one caveat on the pricing. As of the time of this writing, May 2022, PIA is working on some problems with their promotional page pricing. Steve discovered this when we both went to privateinternetaccess.com, and he was offered a 2-year plan and a 6-month plan, while I was offered a 1-year and a 3-year plan. We also saw very slight differences in the prices we were offered. They were off by a nickel. I don't know why. Anyway, I reached out to PIA and they explained they were aware of the problem and they were actually working to fix it. Okay, I found a real typo there. Where was it? Was offered. There it is. Fine. Suffered. Did you know that if you switch 2 characters when you're typing and you put your cursor between the 2 and you hit Option T, it'll swap them? How's that for a fun fact to know and tell? Yeah, I do that all the time. Text expander break. Let's see, where was I? Okay. All right. In any case, the 1-year price of $3.33 per month for 10 devices is only $40 per year. For Steve and me, that would be $80 per year total. And Steve read this and he didn't even notice I said Steve and I instead of Steve and me. For Steve and me, that is Steve's biggest pet peeve is I always forget to use the object instead of the subject when it's the object of a preposition. But I fixed it. There we go. If we want to go even cheaper, we can use that 3-year plan for only $2.19 a month or $26 per year per person. Even at the 1-year commitment level, that makes PIA significantly lower than the next lowest VPN in cost. It's also half the price of Ivpn, the most expensive of the 4. When I saw the price of PIA, I was really hoping I'd like it. I kept using my QFD, though, to make sure I was consistent with what I said was important, and the price was only rated with a 3, not a 9. When I created my account with PIA, they sent me a username and password in plain text through email. That seemed pretty odd. The password they created was only 12 characters long with no special characters. Now, I'm not sure how critical it is to have a secure username and password, since we know from Consumer Reports they don't do any logging of information, but I immediately changed the passwords to something much more secure using BART's xkpasswd.net. I discovered that they offered 2-factor authentication, which I also enabled while I was there. Now, PIA... voice is starting to go. John. Thank you, Sandy. PIA has a very pretty interface. As a menu bar app, it's very smooth and clean looking. There's a giant power button on the screen with a colorful ring around it designating your connection status on the VPN. Below that is a flattened Earth map with a green dot to show you your chosen server's location. By default, it set itself to auto, which was perfect, finding that Las Vegas was the fastest server near me. I didn't give you a picture. Hang on, let's have a picture. There's a second picture coming. Look how pretty it is. There we go. Here. A chevron to the right reveals the servers it has listed in ascending milliseconds of latency. Interestingly, Panama was the same latency, 60 milliseconds, as Las Vegas. Ironically, the fastest California had to offer was 91 milliseconds, and Honolulu, Hawaii was faster at 77 milliseconds. In later tests on my iPhone, Melbourne, Australia was responding faster than Los Angeles. I think this is an important lesson that it's not necessarily the closest server that's the best server, so a VPN that chooses for you might be the best way to go. One of my favorite features of PIA is that it shows you all your stumbling. One of my favorite features of PIA is that it shows you your real IP address and the IP you have through the VPN. A colored ring telling me I'm connected is swell, but seeing that VPN IP saves me a trip to ipchicken.com to verify my VPN IP, as I had been doing when I was using the other VPN apps. Next is a set of country flags for Quick Connect, so I can tap on Panama to connect directly if I want. Below that is a chevron to reveal more real-time information than any of the other VPNs. You get a graph of performance. You can see how much usage you've had, both down and upload. PIA has a plethora of easy-to-understand settings in its main settings window, but you can also access 6 of the most common settings in the menu bar app as little buttons you can toggle for quick changes. For example, you can toggle desktop notifications. You can toggle light versus dark theme. You can allow LAN access. Remember, that's dangerous, but if you need it, it's a quick toggle away, and there's even more under those quick connect buttons. Okay, maybe I'll find it over here. Just a second. Let's see. There it is. I'm going to give you the link this time. I think I can get directly to that. See if this works. Yay. There you go. Now you got the full version. Isn't this pretty? This is such a nice app. You can even see when your subscription renews, which I think is pretty darn polite of them. You can also see a lot about your connection and the protocols it's using. Finally, you have a little VPN snooze button. Now, you just sometimes need to get off the VPN for just a minute or two to do something locally, so that's a real handy feature. There's a 5-minute timer you can change to set how long you want to snooze, so you don't forget to turn it back on. Each of these sets of info I've described has a little grab handle on the right, which means you can rearrange them to put them above the fold and even all the way at the top. It's fabulous and intuitive interface, has tons of information if you want it, and very minimalistic if you don't. After all that, I haven't even told you about the actual settings. There are 9 separate settings panes. Luckily for you, I've gone pretty long in this article, so I'm not going to explain them all. I will tell you that they have a section entitled Automation, and that's where you can set up trusted networks. They have 2 stock automations, what to do on protected Wi-Fi and open Wi-Fi networks. If you would prefer being disconnected on protected Wi-Fi and connected on open Wi-Fi, you can do just that with automations. I chose to always turn the VPN on for both of those scenarios, and I added an automation rule to trust my home network. I didn't even have to type it in, as it was the network to which I was currently attached. The only thing that would have made me like PIA better would be if those automations synced across to my iOS devices like they did with Encrypt.me. Now, I'm betting the carefulness they have with our data, like not logging information, keeps them from being able to do just that. It's really easy to make these automations, so it's not a big deal. Speaking of automations, PIA also offered to set up a Siri shortcut to connect and disconnect from the VPN. That was really nifty. Once I was in love with PIA, I got serious about testing it on my Mac, and iPhone, and iPad. I wanted to make sure that it was actually reliable about connecting and disconnecting correctly on the 2 Wi-Fi networks I used for my test. I promised I wasn't going to tell you about every feature, but there's one more I want to at least draw your attention to. PIA has created a technology they call MACE. The purpose of MACE is to stop cross-site script tracking, but they don't do it the way an ad blocker would. I showed it to Bart, and he said it's simple DNS blocking, but it does have some advantages over trying to use an ad blocker. So I put a link in the show notes to the article explaining how clever this is. Now, I didn't test every one of the VPN offerings for accessibility, but I'm delighted to report that I found no features that I couldn't access via VoiceOver on PIA. Every button was labeled. There wasn't any excessive faffing about to get into each settings from the menu bar app to the dedicated settings panel. I've tested apps where they've got tables and you have to keep going in and out, and they tell you things like, hey, here's a vertical bar. Well, that's really helpful. Everything I tested worked really well with PIA on VoiceOver. Okay, that's the 4 VPNs. As I went through each of the VPNs, I filled in my little QFD decision tool, and there was one more thing to check. How fast are these VPNs? I found a site called fast.com, which will very quickly run a speed test and show you your download speed. It doesn't have anything else on the page except the speed and a retry button, so it's an easy and quick way to find your speed. I ran 3 tests of my network without any of the VPNs, and I found my average speed at that moment. I also made a note to call and shake my fist at my ISP Frontier because I'm only getting 59 megabits per second when I'm paying for 100 symmetrical. Anyway, I then turned on each of the VPNs one by one, and I ran 3 tests, and I averaged those results. Mozilla Vpn was the fastest at 52 megabits per second using a Los Angeles server, while the other 3 were all clustered from 40 to 44 megabits per second. Now, Mozilla VPN is supposed to be using Mulvad servers, remember? But for some reason, Mozilla VPN was actually 25% faster than Mulvad in this rather limited test. Now, I think more data points from more locations would have been more scientific. I think the important point is that all of the offerings, while slower than my un-VPN connection, were all pretty darn fast. The bottom line comes now. Nope. X. We're almost done. Almost. Oh gosh, it's 6 minutes till. It's time for the bottom line. I'm guessing you can tell which one I'm going to go with, and if you guessed PIA, you would be right. It scored a 379 on my QFD, while Mulvad and Ivpn tied at 301, with Mozilla VPN bringing up the rear at 265. PIA is gorgeous. It's easy and intuitive to use and configure. It's fast, it's accessible, it offers trusted networks, and it's by far the least expensive of all the offerings. I wanted to choose my VPN provider with complete, unbiased security and privacy review, and Consumer Reports gave me exactly what I needed to get started. I hope you'll find a VPN provider you can trust, and if you haven't, that's too clumsy. I wanted to choose my VPN provider with completely unbiased security and privacy review, and Consumer Reports gave me exactly what I needed to get started. I hope you find a VPN provider you can trust, and if you haven't yet, hopefully this article will have helped you consider how to do your own research into the best one for you, or maybe to just check and see how your VPN provider met their requirements. If you decide to blindly follow me instead of using your own criteria and go with PIA, they gave me a referral link that will last 30 days. Nope, not last. Add. If you decide to go with If you decide to blindly follow me and go with PIA, they gave me a referral link that will add 30 days of credit to your paid account and to mine. I'm not in any way suggesting you should blindly follow me, but if I made a compelling argument for the service, why not share in the savings? Wow, 40 minutes. I got to recheck my math. It was supposed to be it's supposed to be 30 minutes, and it went longer than that. Okay, let me republish this because I made some changes. And then we're going to get back to this. Okay, chapter mark. Okay, this is going to be a long pledge break. Chapter mark. Whoops. Copy link. Copy. Whew. There we go. All right. Nope, gotta be on the right app. You know how much it helps keep the show going that people are willing to support the work we do here at the Podfeed Pad. Okay, try again. You know how much it helps keep the show going that people are willing to support the work we do here at the Podfeed Podcast by using Patreon for ongoing pledges and PayPal for one-off donations. But there's another way you can show your support, and that's through using my referral links. You just heard me mention one. Referral links are a good way for you to get something free, usually, on something you were going to buy anyway, and I get some free stuff too. I've been accumulating more and more referral links over time for services that I actually use myself, and I've done 2 things with them now. If you go to podfeed.com, there's been a big support the show button for a long time. It takes you to the bottom of the page where I've got big buttons for Patreon and PayPal. But now there's a cute icon showing 2 people sharing a bag of money. If you click on that icon, it takes you to a dedicated page filled with referral links that I'll keep adding to as time goes on. Now, if that sounds like a lot of work to do to find that list, why don't you just open up the show notes right now in your podcatcher? I've put all of the referral links in there as well. Now, I said you get free stuff for doing this, mostly. Let's give you some examples. Recently, someone used the Parallels Toolbox referral link when they subscribed to it. They got 3 months on top of their subscription, and so did I. Bob Kimmy, I think that guy's name is Bob Kim, not Bob Kimmy. Hang on, hold please. How about if I just do, I think I'll just call him Bob and Kim. Somebody remind me to take out Bob's last name. Bob and Chris joined SetApp using my referral link, and they got free. Jeez, how hard is this? Bob and Chris, it's hard. Okay, I just got to fix it in here because I keep reading what I wrote. Bob and I misspelled Chris. How hard is that? Command Z. Bob and Chris joined SetApp using my referral link, and they got a free month of the service, and so did I. Whenever somebody buys a Mac Sparky field guide with my referral link, they get 15% credit towards their next field guide, and I get the same. I've got referral links for Backblaze backups that give you a free month, Google Fi that gives you $20 credit, and you just heard me say that I've got a PIA referral link. Get this, by the time you're hearing this, 3 people have already signed up for PIA using the referral link I used in the show notes. I said at the beginning of this that you mostly get free stuff. The one exception in the list is Eufy. I've been buying their cameras to replace my Wyze cams after Wyze lied to us after 3 years about a security problem. And if you spend... That's weird. The one exception in the list is Eufy. I've been buying Eufy cameras to replace my Wyze cams after Wyze lied to us for 3 years about a bad security problem. If you spend $200 on cameras from Eufy, I get $40 and you get nothing but a warm feeling in your heart that you helped me out. Now, I'm buying the inexpensive indoor cameras for around $30, so I think you'd have to work pretty hard to spend $200, but I figured I'd throw it in just in case. I know this was a long pledge break, but since there's something in it for you, I thought you'd allow it. All right. Can you please donate Podfeet? What do you want me to donate? Copy link? You should stop worrying about that, Alan. Just don't worry about it. It's all good. You're fine. Don't feel guilty. Stop worrying about it. You seem to be very stressed on it. It's always coming up. All right. Okay, now... finding security bits. Now, I understand it's 6:01, and if you have to go and you don't love us, that's fine. But where'd security bits go? Where did I put it? There it is. Oh, I was in the wrong folder. I was like, that'd be bad if I couldn't find that. Well, you still got a 42-minute show without any work, so that's it's extra secure, huh? All right, splitting both of those, and we'll get rid of. Steve always says, even without Steve here, he says that that I have to play this. Because we have traditions. Here you go. Listen.
Blink. Blink. Blink.
Okay, there we go. Everybody got the blink. Let's move this up here. That looks about right. And we'll go here, and we'll slide that about there. Let's see how that sounds. For you, I thought you'd allow it. Well, it's that time of the week again. It's time for one of my favorite times of the week. It's time for Security Bits with Bart Busschots. Well, wow, I think Bart hit his mic. I think I'll cut that. For Security Bits with Bart Busschots, well, we'll learn whether we need to light our hair on fire about all kinds of things today, right, Bart?
We will indeed. I'm a little thin on top, so thankfully nothing to set on fire today.
All right. We don't have time. We're almost done.
Folks, until next time, stay patched so you stay secure.
Okay. Cut that off. Here we go. We're almost done. Well, that's going to wind us up for tonight. And do not forget to join us a week from Monday in the live chat room at podfeet.com/chat for the WWDC conference. But in the meantime, did you know you can email me at allison@podfeet.com anytime you like? If you have questions or suggestions, just send it on over. You can also follow me on Twitter at podfeet. If you want to join in the fun of the conversation, you know everything good starts with podfeet.com, so you can join our Slack community at podfeet.com/Slack, where you can talk to me and all of the other lovely Nosilla castaways. Right now, we're having fun with 1Password 8, competing on who has the best security score. I think Sandy was ahead, but I think somebody else just jumped in and might be beating her. I know it's not me. Anyway, remember, everything good starts with podfeet.com, like I said, so you can support the show at podfeet.com/Patreon with a one-time donation or podfeet.com/PayPal. Nope, I just said it wrong. I think Sandy was ahead, but anyway. Anyway, don't forget to go to podfeet.com/Patreon for a recurring donation or a one-time donation at podfeet.com/PayPal. And don't forget to look for those referral links in your podcatcher of choice. And if you want to join in the fun of the live show, head on over to podfeet.com/live on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time and enjoy. Jeez. Come on. And if you... I'm going to make it. And if you want to join the fun of the live show, head on over to podfeet.com/live on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time and join the friendly and enthusiastic NosillaCastaways. Thanks for listening and stay subscribed. All right, who's doing the chapter count tonight? I'll see if Steve's listening. So somebody's got, so it's whatever's there plus 4 is what I think we should have. So NosillaCast outro is where, there it is. Throw that in there. Thanks for listening and stay subscribed. Okay. So if I look here, I'm going to have to count for myself. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plus 4, last I checked was 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. No, yes, there are 4 lights, as always. Never gets old. All right. I am ready to call it a day. So I am going to export this, and I am going to kiss Rose goodbye when I'm done starting this to export. And then I'm going to say goodbye to the rest of you. Goodbye, Rose. All right. Now, you know what I don't know is I don't know how to